In 2023, the Nigerian Electricity Supply Industry went through two major resets. The first one was that there was an amendment of the Constitution. The Constitution is the highest law of the land. And so there was an amendment of the Constitution. What did this amendment mean? Actually, there were various amendments, but for the purpose of the energy sector, one was critical, and that is state houses of assembly, subnational governments within subnational governments, were given the power to make laws for generation, transmission within their coverage areas. That's very interesting because it brought about a whole new set of rules for the market. Now, why was this important, you may say? Why did the Constitution need to be amended? Interestingly, the amendment took place in order that a few words be deleted from the Constitution. Previously, states could make laws for generation, transmission, and distribution of electricity in areas not covered by the national grid. It's interesting how that phrase, not covered by the national grid, could cause so much confusion. But there was a bit of confusion as to what did that really mean? That a state house of assembly could make laws for transmission, distribution, and generation in areas not covered by the national grid. And so, during this amendment that took place in 2023, that phrase was deleted. And so the ambiguity is gone. Now, once it's within the state, subnational governments, the state houses of assembly, that's the legislative or the lawmaking arm, can make laws for generation, transmission, and distribution. The next important game changer that took place also in 2023 was that the Electricity Act of 2023 was enacted. It was very important because with the fact that the major law of the land has been amended, there now needed to be a synchrony between the amendment that had taken place of the Constitution and the laws governing electricity as a whole in Nigeria. The previous law that was in existence was called the Electric Power Sector Reform Act, or for short, EPSRA. EPSRA 2005 was the pre-existing law before the enactment of the Electricity Act of 2023. And you may wonder, why is this important? We're not all lawyers. Yes, I know. But this is important because the Electric Power Sector Reform Act, or the EPSRA, no longer fits the changes that had taken place in the Constitution. And so the Electricity Act of 2023 repealed, that means cancelled, did away with the EPSRA of 2005, and the Electricity Act of 2023 came into force. Now, the interesting thing about that Electricity Act, relating to what happened with the Constitution, is that it provided a platform to enable states' transition, move from being centrally regulated to being decentralized and regulated by the state. So those are the two major things that took place in 2023 that brought about the reset and the dynamism that we're seeing in the electricity sector in Nigeria. But you may wonder, why was all this necessary? Well, for one, about 45% of over 200 million people don't have access to electricity in Nigeria. And so there's a huge energy access gap that needs to be filled. And in 2024 alone, there were 12 grid collapses. What does this mean? This means when there is a challenge with transmission, which may come from either distribution of electricity or generation of electricity or transmission itself, and power supply in the whole country goes down. This happened about 12 times last year. Added to the fact that there is a huge energy access gap in the country. And so it was thought that it was important to begin to tackle these energy access, energy security challenges from another angle. And that was why interested stakeholders, the Nigerian Governors Forum, the Nigerian Electricity Regulatory Commission, and other interested stakeholders from the states and at the national level came together to push for the amendment of the Constitution and also the enactment of the Electricity Act. And so, as a result of this, state houses of assembly have the power to make their own rules and laws for generation, transmission, and distribution of electricity in their own states. Sort of looks like taking your own destiny into your hands. Having been regulated at the center. So we talked about centralized regulation and decentralized regulation. What is centralized regulation? Centralized regulation is what had been happening before the constitutional amendment and the enactment of the Electricity Act. There is one regulator, Nigerian Electricity Regulatory Commission, which has its headquarters in Abuja, which has been regulating generation, transmission, and distribution of electricity. So that is the centralized regulation that existed. But with these game changers, we're seeing the emergence of subnational regulators. That means state electricity regulatory commissions coming up after fulfilling the conditions in the Electricity Act for the creation of their state electricity markets. You may ask me, Jumoke, what does this mean? And why do they have to do this? In another episode, I'll go through the detailed provisions of the Electricity Act that has to do with setting up state electricity markets. Don't worry, I'll let you in on the full gist as to what is required in order to create your state electricity market. So these changes were put in place. This new law, the Electricity Act, the constitutional amendment, were put in place in order to plug the challenges and give states the powers even to tackle their energy security and energy access gaps. What is a state electricity market? It's a decentralized market where the state is the one responsible for the policies, responsible for the regulation, for the creation of its own market, for licensing, for monitoring and supervision, even of the players and operators. These are interesting times for the Nigerian Electricity Supply Industry, and I'm very excited about that. In my next video, I will be talking to you about the detailed steps, because the fact that you have these powers does not mean it automatically transforms to more energy for your citizens. It doesn't mean that automatically you have a viable state electricity market. There are some steps that need to be taken. And in my next video, I'll tell you all about it. My name is Olajumoke Delano. I'm an energy lawyer and an international consultant. I have been traveling in the last 1 year to various states in Nigeria, helping them with the establishment of state electricity markets. Until I come your way with the next episode, subscribe to my channel for more information on state electricity markets and all things energy explained.